Hey, hi. Wow. Have you ever talked to operations teams about platforms? I have, plenty of times. And our industry called different things platforms over the years, from application servers to virtualization to container runtimes. Today, we have thousands of individual technologies with loads of options within each category, and nearly every operations team created their own version of what they call a platform. And that is all they usually care about. Unfortunately, mostly only from a technical point of view, composed of technical building blocks and features, the traditional hamburger diagrams. This surely is interesting and absolutely state of the art from a technology point of view. It also leads to a complexity that often bogs down teams, having to care for life cycle, integration, and maintenance of systems more than actually supporting them, getting apps built and deployed to production. Let's call this inappropriate in most of the cases, and incompatible with what we know about lean software development, productive teams, and scaling DevOps. This way, millions of developers burn out and turn unhappy. But what can be done about it? And what should platforms offer besides the technical building blocks? I'm taking you on a run today, and you need to see what that means in a second. During that run, we're going to briefly talk about the five things that I believe are core pieces in turning existing infrastructures into platforms. We're going to talk about technology and people and processes, platform as an interface, how and why open source is essential for all of this. Obviously, we need to talk about trust and secure supply chains. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the mindset, and that's necessary to work within platforms. While we see a lot of talks around reference architectures and building blocks for platforms, I felt that the core pieces of every platform engineering initiative are worthwhile to resurface in the light of what many organizations already established as platforms. And now you're wondering how I'm going to make the transition into that running picture here. This is me. Hi, I'm Marcus, and this is me running on an ugly, rainy day, late 2023, a random route in my neighborhood. Well, spending some time on the road running is not only great for physical health, it also gets my mental juices flowing. It might have been somewhere between kilometer 8 and 11 on one of my weekend long ones when I realized that platform adoption reminded me of my own running journey. I invite you today to join me while we explore the similarities, and I will leave it up to you to decide how good of a job I do at the very end. I'm an old runner. I started late in life, only in my 40s. And I realized that it wasn't that bad after all. It was like I had the infrastructure, I had the legs, the body, the roads, but I didn't know how to run. All I knew was that I had to start somewhere. What many platform teams do right is the start. No matter if in the traditional operational sense or in the modern platform thinking approach, they make their first choices. So did I. I knew how to run. Humans do this as soon as they can walk. Kids do it most of the time to get anywhere, like for fun. I had to pick shoes, and they needed to fit. I started off with my old trainers I had in my drawer, everything that gets me going, starting small and fast. And I needed a cadence, like find time on my schedule. Maybe start with 2 times a week, I thought. Does it remind you of anything? Yes, people, technology, and process. You have heard this plenty of times before, and this trifecta still is the foundation, what is called DevOps. What turns out to be a brilliant start for many adventures around building a platform is a first step into the right direction for running too. It is what I call the minimum starting point. Unfortunately, this is also where many platform initiatives still stand as of today. But we do know that just doing DevOps is not enough. It's only a start. Once you start, you quickly realize improvements. I was able to walk and run longer distances more regularly after a couple of months. But it became obvious that something wasn't scaling. My joints and tendons were screaming, my cotton shirts and shorts were soaked, and I was scrambling to get going. It was a fight over and over again. It was uncomfortable, almost painful. Using what I had built as a platform wasn't easy. It somewhat did what it was supposed to do, but it was missing all the fun and lightness. As a beginner runner, I made the same mistake that platform teams easily make in the beginning. They assume that exceptions turn into regularities automatically, no matter how painful they might look at first. But special rules, isolation, and incentives only create temporary success. That success is not repeatable for business as usual and day to day operations. I ignored usability completely. While technically it doesn't make a difference in what close you run, whether appropriate closing is an important factor in running. The comfort defines usability here, and the same is true for platforms. They need to be flexible enough to expose functionality in different ways for different use cases, depending on existing platforms and patterns and new requirements, obviously. And I called it interface. But what I really mean covers everything that helps platform consumers or end users to use it. Some users need plain APIs or REST endpoints to access services and automate certain aspects of their work. A good example for this could be JCube, a Java library that I, as a Java developer, love for containerizing and deploying my Java applications. Other users might need a command line interface. And when I'm talking about CLIs, I do think beyond kubectl. If you have heard about Odo, now is the time to take a look. It basically abstracts Kubernetes details away and helps developers to start quicker with their applications. Another example abstraction is software templates, or golden path, or paved roads, or even autobahn, as I like to call them. The easiest way to scaffold templated knowledge into a developer's Git repository. And these are only three examples. You can come up with your own priorities quickly, I'm sure. Think about a developer console for specific frameworks, for example, or monitoring front ends. The list goes on and on. A little warning though, I think of platform interfaces as compression socks. Some are tighter than others, and it heavily depends on your personal psychology which ones really make a difference on long runs and aren't just a pain to put on. Another thing that surprised me on my running journey was that I had to teach my body to use energy differently. Without further boring you about physiological details here, but our bodies are usually only have about 30 minutes of glucose reserve. That doesn't carry us far. The important catalyst here is low heart rate training, or in different words, aerobic training. Instead of directly consuming the nicely pre-packaged glucose bar stored in your body, it helps you embrace all the available energy sources your body has at its disposal. I like to think of this as a fundamental change in the consumption model from commercial candy off the shelf to something open source. And as a matter of fact, open source plays a vital role in platforms. Depending on the organizational maturity and abilities to use open source, its impact can reach from a consumption only approach to a full blown inner source model. And especially the inner source approach empowers platform engineering teams to not only deliver pre-packaged engineered solutions, but let the end users actively contribute to the success of the platform. Opportunities range from reusable pipeline tasks to complete pipelines, software templates, and something even specific scaffolders, APIs, or plugins for developer portals. The list is endless. The resulting artifacts aren't even the most important elements ultimately. I believe that the open source culture applied correctly to platform engineering keeps engaged communities alive and helps them to adopt to change more rapidly. The inherent transparency fosters an honest and open environment that ultimately helps to solve problems faster. Sharing is caring. This brings up another important point: trust. During my first running kilometers, I've developed a deep suspicion towards my smartwatch and its heart rate monitoring capabilities in particular. When you're seriously considering running and building up your endurance, you need to trust this data point and make sure you're running a significant amount of time within low heart rate zones. The only way to get reliable data is to invest into a chest strap or a chain. Okay, it's a stretch, but you get the point. Let's talk about something that I think is heavily undervalued when it comes to platform engineering. How can you build trust into your delivery pipeline? What are the minimum requirements and pieces that need to be accounted for? When following the basic steps of a software development lifecycle, we usually start at the source code side. Automation is key. As always, we need automated composition and dependency analysis and recommendations for our projects, and more generally allow signing any components like source code, YAML, config files, or even infrastructure as code. Developers ideally consume trusted content through software templates and base their new components on them. A short recommendation can be: give developers confidence in their source code security and dependencies, but don't get in their way. Continuing the journey with the build step, it's essential to only build from signed and verified sources. That includes base images and other dependencies that are scanned and verified. The next step is to sign the resulting artifacts and list all contents in an SBOM, so we know what's included and used where exactly. An extra step is attestation of the integrity of your artifacts and build pipeline according to standards, for example, SALSA. Beautiful build, signed, scanned, and cataloged, we move on to the deployment stage. Preventing any tampering on the way, everything needs to be checked and verified again. While continuing the attestation process across environments, that is essential. Like, we need to make sure nothing happens in between without us potentially being aware. At runtime, we need to continuously scan for CVEs and monitor what has been deployed and is now running on our platform. So additionally, we also need to be able to assess the blast radius, like literally if a CVE hits, even for components that are currently not CVE monitored. We should manage all our SBOMs from our own development and also the ones supplied by vendors, and cross-reference them with CVEs and security advisories as they happen. Am I affected? And if yes, where and how big is the impact? All this leads to a manageable risk profile over time and helps to foster platform policies and integrity, so you can identify and ultimately stop suspicious behavior. You made it. We finally arrived at the top. When talking to runners about running, you will hear a lot that the mental parts are the hardest ones. And even just comparably short into my running journey, I could already tell you almost endless stories about little devils sitting on my shoulder, whispering tempting things into my ears. With everything said so far about the most important pillars of successful platforms, I want to make sure you also keep in mind that mindset is an important part. Your teams need to keep the change of the growth mindset under control. And with that, I mean, navigating the complexity of today's platform stacks is not easy. The ideal persona to do this is the famous full stack developer. The full stack developer or engineer is extremely difficult to find, develop, and sustain. In cases where individuals are able to fulfill these roles, they place themselves at risk of cognitive overload and even health risks. Moving teams or individuals from a generalist to a full stack understanding is not only time consuming, but also inherits risks. So you are looking to build full stack teams and not full stack individuals. With this final reminder, I'm going to leave you to continue your own journey. And I also want to thank you for allowing me to confuse correlation and causation over the last 15 minutes while running and platform engineering obviously have not a lot in common on first sight, I can see the growth steps and opportunities in both disciplines follow an equal pattern, presenting similar opportunities. At the end of the day, all long lasting initiatives will reassemble a marathon and not a sprint. With that in mind, enjoy the endurance aspects of building a platform engineering initiative. And you're, of course, welcome to comment and share your thoughts about the talk. In any case, there's also a link to my favorite social running platform on here. I'll keep free cheers and motivation around for everyone following me. So thank you so much.